Good morning. I'd like to call the Finance, Ways and Means Committee to order for February 21st, 2024. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Representatives Barrett, Boyd, Camper, Cochran, Crawford, Faison, Freeman, Gant, Garrett, Hawk, Hicks of Hawkins, Hicks of Washington, Kiesling, Lamberth, Love, Lynn, McKenzie, Miller, Moon, Parkinson, Shaw, Sparks, Whitson, Williams, Zachary, Vice Chairman Baum, Chair Lady Hazelwood. Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Before we begin, do we have any personal orders or announcements from anyone? Well, I'm going to take this opportunity. Hopefully, my grandson will never see it and know that I embarrassed him in this way. But I just found out last night that my grandson made a 36 on his ACT. So. Well, then I guess that sort of dooms his opportunities to be a representative. But anyway, maybe not. But again, seriously, thank you all for being here bright and early this morning. I do appreciate it. I know it's a long slog that we go through, but we have important work to do. Hearing from our departments and trying to get a handle on the budget. I don't know if you all saw the revenue report that came out this week, but we are another $95 million below budget. So the budget situation that wasn't bright is looking even dimmer. So we're going to have hard decisions to make, and hearing from these departments about what their critical needs are and, the things that are just crucial for their operation and for Tennessee citizens. It's going to be really important in helping us make those decisions. Thank you for being here and being willing to take the time to listen. And thank you, our presenters. And I'm going to ask Commissioner McWhorter to come up now with his team. And we will hear from our friends at ECD, who are going to bring us a lot more business and produce a lot more revenues for our upcoming budgets. Commissioner, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair, Lady, members of the committee. Stuart McWhorter, Commissioner of Economic and Community Development for the state of Tennessee. To my right, Braden Stover, our Legislative Director, and to my left, Jessica Johnson, Assistant Commissioner, and Assistant Commissioner Brooksy Carlton, here to answer questions as well. Before I start, I would say congratulations to your grandson. I scored a 36, but mine was cumulative after taking it several times. I eventually got a 36 when you add them all up. So, but that's phenomenal. So congratulations. I know you're proud. So good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present the fiscal year 25 recommended budget for our department. Our approach while building this budget was rooted in three primary tenets: to align our priorities with our 4-year strategic plan supported by 5 major strategic pillars: incentive strategy, inventory infrastructure strategy, community and rural development strategy, small business and entrepreneurship innovation strategy, and lastly, innovative economic solution strategy. Second is to refine a variety of areas in Tennessee's capacity for economic growth for workforce, rural development, mobility, innovation, and energy. And lastly, to ensure we position our economic development investments in every area for long-term sustainability. As you can see, our current revenue environment requires a pretty significant pivot to the pace of our vision. And this is as concerning to us as it is for you. But I assure you, our department, with these cost increases and its current resources, is still on the trajectory to move our state forward in the areas of economic and community development. Today's cost increases reflect the beginning of our course toward fulfilling our strategic vision for Tennessee. So we have 2 items in our cost increases in our budget. The first is community and rural development, the total of $36,164,000. That consists of $35.8 million of non-recurring dollars and $364,000 of recurring for 3 new positions. The second item is the Transportation Network Growth Opportunity Director position. We call this T and Go, and that is a new position, and we've put in the budget request for $227,500. So combined of these two, our cost increases for this year, for next fiscal year, is $36,391,500. So that sums up our budget, recommended budget for fiscal year 25.
Well, thank you for that very succinct report. We do have a number of questions, and I know, Commissioner, we sent a questionnaire, and your department provided some answers. So I think there'll be some questions digging down on some of that, and then obviously, in light of the economic news, we may have some other questions about if there's any potential that you see in your department for, if we had to do cuts where that might be the least painful to come from. But we will get on to that. We'll begin our questioners with Chairman Kiesling.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Appreciate it again. Has already been said, thank you, Commissioner, for being here, you and the team. Included in last year's proposed, or in the governor's proposed budget, is 35 million, north of 35 million in non-reoccurring, and the three additional positions, in which I think you've already mentioned, of course, is for the Rural Development Fund. Now, last year, 45 mil in non-reoccurring was appropriated to the Rural Development Fund. Three-part question. First, why, now these three positions, why really are they needed? Could you reiterate or explain?
Sure, I'm happy
briefly?
to, and I'll ask Brooksky to chime in as well. We've been pretty stabilized with our department of about 100 employees. We're a pretty small department, and we manage many grants, and we continue to get more grants as other departments and the governor has other initiatives. They tend to kind of come to our department, which says a lot about how we do what we do.
Right.
But we've been flat with respect to the number of employees, particularly Brooksy's department, and the number of grants that they have to administer every year. So it's over the last several years, actually the volume of grants has increased by threefold, and we've just remained, steady at our head count. So it's something we asked for last year. We didn't get it, so we've come back to ask, and this department desperately needs more employees to help process these claims or process these grants.
Mhm. Okay. Well, B part was the can your department be managed without them? It sounds like no. The answer to that is no, right, Brooksy? The second question is, could you please provide an update to the appropriations from last year? How much has been obligated to date?
Yes.
Brooksy, is that you?
Yeah, I can give you some highlights on that. Brooksy Carlton with ECD. We have allocated we broke it down into several different categories. Our site development grants, we've already awarded $17 million in that. We got in $50 million in applications. We just got in round 2 letters of intent, got in 28 more. So about 35 million of that from last year is going towards site development grants. We're also doing infrastructure planning grants. We are about to award those probably next week. We got in $21 million in applications. We're awarding 10 million of those. Our downtown improvement grants, we got in about $8 million in applications for downtown improvement. We awarded 4 million a couple of months ago. So we haven't awarded all of the funds yet, but we're pretty close already, just halfway through the year.
Got it. Okay. And finally, already in the budget, in the governor's budget hearings, your department requested just over 48 mil for the Rural Development Fund. Now, how is your department prioritizing the uses with the lower amount currently in the proposed budget? Brooksy, to you, is that right?
Yes, sir. Pretty close to what I just talked about. Those
Yeah.
3 programs, the downtown development programs, the site development programs, and infrastructure planning are some of our most popular programs, our most oversubscribed programs. So we're proposing putting most of the money toward those programs. Also do some Tennessee Downtowns, which is also a downtown development program. 3-star, we'll hold off till next year. We're doing that as a 2-year program. So mostly site development, infrastructure, and
Thank you.
downtowns.
Thank you, Brooksy. And as a reminder, Commissioner, you are so blessed to have her. You know that, though,
Absolutely.
don't
Yes,
you?
sir.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Brooksy. And Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Kiesling. Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me say again, you scored well on your ACT. I appreciate that. But thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and thank you all so much for what you do. I think sometimes we do overlook how important your department is to the state and the economic developments that we enjoy. But I do want to ask you, are the funds going to locally owned, operated utility providers, or is it primarily to those private owned providers? I don't know who would want to take that question.
So we have 2 programs that benefit utilities. One is a federal program, CDBG, that goes only to cities and counties and the publicly owned, and then infrastructure planning grants have to go to publicly owned utilities. So we don't have any programs, I don't think, that go to private owned utility.
Okay.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you. And while I got you, how, just in case there might be some folks listening want to know, how would one apply for these grants just in general? Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yes, sir. We generally do some kind of notification to the communities, the development districts, grant writers, when the grants are open. We have a calendar on our website that talks about when all the programs are open. All the applications are on our website. We try to do a really good job of letting communities know when we have opportunities for funding. And then all of our applications are online, so they're fairly easy, I hope, to do.
Thank you.
Commissioner, you mentioned in your overview there the budget allocation for the position for the 10 Go initiative. Can you kind of help us, remind us what that initiative is, what this person will be doing, and just what the plans are?
Sure. So T and Go was part of last year's budget and was included in our department's budget. We got $5 million, and that initiative was really created to help advance a lot of the mobility efforts around the state. So if you look at where Tennessee is as a state, we've got 4 automotive, soon to be 4 automotive OEMs, and the ecosystem in automotive and mobility has continued to grow significantly over the years on the manufacturing side. But what we've lacked as a state is being competitive from a innovation, research and development perspective. If you look at what other states are doing, they're well advanced in their efforts on mobility. So T and Go is an initiative to help really bridge the gap between what I consider manufacturing rich assets in our state, large global brands that are here making product, investing significant dollars in our state, but they're not really investing their research and development dollars in our state. And so what T and Go is set up to do under our department, under our leadership, is to help bridge that gap and help bring together the industry with the innovators and the research and development assets, whether it's the four-year higher education institutions or other research institutions like Oak Ridge National Labs and others that have wonderful things in place, but they're just not engaging at the industry level. So that's what T and Go is set up to do, and that's what we're doing today. The plan and what I've discussed with the governor is how do we advance this into the future and turn mobility into something much broader across the state and broadly speaking innovation. And other areas that I think we can do this is, and these are just examples. We haven't said this is what we should do, but we believe other areas that have significant opportunity is around life sciences or energy, or especially nuclear. We look at what's going on in Chattanooga with quantum and supercomputing. There's a host of other things. If you look at these clusters of R&D and clusters in terms of what we do as a state in manufacturing, there's just a wide gap. And so the idea behind T and Go is to evolve into a larger innovation strategy. In order to do that effectively, we need somebody that is focused on this 100% of the time And so we'd asked for the position in the budget just to fund this so that we could take that next step going into the next year. And that's what this is all about. What the why we requested the position, but the vision, the long-term vision is to take TN Go, focus at least initially on mobility, and take the same lessons learned and apply that across several other clusters in the state across a broader innovation strategy.
And that $5 million that is in the current year's budget, is that recurring? And I'm sorry, I don't know this, but so those dollars have, you do not have that pot again in the upcoming budget?
That's
that the
correct.
governor
We'd asked
proposed.
for additional 5 million non-recurring for this next budget cycle. That was not granted. We do have dollars remaining from this year that we might be able to utilize some of that going forward. We'll have to step back and scale back a bit with our strategy, plans that we made for this fiscal year on those dollars. But it's important that we try to keep that going because we're, one of the stats that I point to often. There was a study performed recently by Launch Tennessee that found that Tennessee is pretty much second to last to our peer states with respect to research and development investments in our state. We compare to other states, and we have an opportunity to move that, get at least middle of the pack, and we got to make some investments and a commitment to that effort to do so. And so that's really what we're trying to do in all this.
And I applaud that effort. I know there've been a lot of conversations in the part of the state that I live in about that for quite a long time too. It's wonderful. We appreciate the manufacturing and the manufacturing jobs that are in our state with all these different OEMs, but the jobs that we're talking about, the R&D jobs, number one, they're a lot more high paying, which is always attractive. And it helps to really bind those companies to Tennessee. So those efforts, it's certainly something I think is a worthy cause. The problem as always is finding the dollars to fund it.
That's right.
Chairman Baum.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
During the COVID pandemic, ECD was awarded about $500 million in ARPA funds. One of our dashboards indicates that only about 20 million of those funds have been spent. So I was wondering if you could give us an update on how much of the 500 million has been spent or at least obligated.
Yeah, Brooksy, you want to answer that?
Yes, I think the last time I looked at it, which was maybe last week, about 50 million has now been drawn down, spent. We have allocated 450 million for broadband infrastructure grants. So those are all under contract. Those are all underway. And then next month, we will allocate the additional 50 million. We have 3 programs: Connected Community Facilities Program, Broadband Ready Communities Program, and a Digital Skills and Education and Workforce Program. So we'll all allocate the remaining 50 million then. So we are on track to allocate all the funding by the end of this year and to spend all of the funding by the end of 2026.
Okay, and then I guess I have kind of the same question about the Last Mile Connection Program. We got $215 million for that. How much of those funds have been spent or at least obligated?
So those funds have not been obligated yet. They are also scheduled to be obligated next month in March. We have 2 programs that are going to be obligated. Our Last Mile program and our Middle Mile program will both be announced next month. So we're finalizing those application reviews. So still on track for obligating those on time and spending that money on time.
Okay, and then last question, we also got money from the BEAD program, Broadband Equity Access and Development, $813 million. I remember several years ago when we were talking about expanding broadband in the state of Tennessee, we asked an expert or two how much money it would take to cover the whole state, get the whole state done. And I remember them saying something like 400 million, 500 million. Here we have 813 million. Is this enough to finish the job?
We had to submit a report or a plan to NTIA, to the feds, for how we're going to spend that money. And we had to show how we're going to cover every household and business in Tennessee with that funding. And we do believe that $800 million will be enough to cover that. We hope we have some left over that we can spend on digital equity access, things like that as well. One of the good things that changed that calculation was they raised the level of what's considered served. So instead of it being 25/3 service that's considered served, they moved it up to 120, 100 over 20. So that opened up some more households that we can serve with this funding that are now considered unserved.
Okay, so maybe just one more question, actually. So we've got the money to cover the state. What obstacles or hurdles are we experiencing now to actually finishing that job?
So I think the last mile is an example of how we're addressing one of those. There are some areas of the state where we just can't find a provider. There aren't any providers that are applying for these areas. And so the last mile program set aside specific areas and said, we're setting aside this money for this area because we've never gotten an application for that area. And we're trying to target and do things like reduce match so that providers will come into that area. So that is one of the biggest challenges is some areas we just don't have anybody to serve them. And then the other challenge is that these are the hardest to serve areas. You know, there may be a half mile, a mile between the houses, and we're still responsible for ensuring that they have some kind of service. And the preference is that they have fiber service. So some of the very, very hard to serve areas that the feds are going to help us define what those areas are. We can look at other kinds of service other than fiber, but there is a preference to get fiber to every household and business.
Okay, thank you.
So just to follow up to that, I think what I'm hearing is that these dollars are intended to be for fiber connectivity. But if there are regions like in the part of the world where some of us live in East Tennessee that are, the terrain is and topography make that difficult, the distance between homes. So something like a satellite option, would that be funded under this as sort of a last resort?
It would be a very last resort. The feds really want us to prioritize fiber, and we'll have to get permission from them to do something else for those areas.
And so that would have to be done on a house by house or general area. How would that work?
We don't know exactly what the process for that's going to be. We have a year after our plan is approved, which should be in March or April, to allocate all the funds. So we'll see where we get applications. And if there are still some of those really hard to serve areas where we won't be able to do fiber, then we'll have a conversation with the feds at that point.
Right. Thank you. Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and thank you, Commissioner. I've got a couple of questions about incentives. With the understanding of job creation, Tennessee has made large investment in multiple companies recently, Amazon, Ford, In-N-Out Burger, Nokian Tires. How does the department verify that these companies are meeting their obligations under the agreement with the state?
It's a great question. So every incentive that we provide comes with an accountability agreement that the companies have to agree to and sign before the incentive is initiated. And with that it's a formula that we process getting data from the company based on the jobs created during that period of time is agreed upon during that accountability agreement. So during the process, we ask the company to send in their data, the number of jobs that have been created, and it's a list of names, and we go through a process to verify those, and we do it on basically a certain period of time during the course of several years to make sure that they've accomplished the goal, what they've set out to do as part of getting that incentive. So it's an exchange of information during that period of time.
Madam Chair Lady. If a company opens a Tennessee location and creates a position, and then they fill that position with someone working remotely, does that count as a job created under the agreement?
If the remote worker is in the state of Tennessee, it would.
But this person is outside the state, working remotely. They don't contribute to the tax base. Are they counted or not counted?
They are not counted if they're out of the state of Tennessee.
Okay, so how often would you estimate that occurs, that we have a remote working
in another
position?
state? I don't think it occurs very often because they know what our requirements are on the front end.
So you verify that that person is working in the state.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Representative Gant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good thing for you is we're not going to talk about cold beer sales here this morning. So we're going to talk about some more serious questions. During the special session in 21, the General Assembly allocated, as you know, roughly $900 million in funds for Ford to create the Blue Oval City. The goal of the incentive package revolved around the creation of at least 5,700 new full-time jobs by Ford to build, the F-150, Lightning trucks. Recently, Ford's CEO announced the company would be lowering its 2024 F-150 Lightning production by 50% and shifting its focus to a hybrid vehicle production. Can you expand on that a little bit? And then also, does Ford's grant agreement allow them the flexibility to change the type of vehicle produced at the Blue Oval City as long as they stay in line with that job creation requirement?
Thank you for the question. Understanding the headlines at Ford in cutting production and some of the supply and demand challenges that are out there, as far as we know in the communication we've had with Ford and Blue Oval City, it has not changed their plans in terms of what their production plans and timeline at Blue Oval City. They maintain that they're still pressing forward with the plans that they presented to us and have communicated that all along. With respect to the accountability agreement and the jobs that they've promised to generate, it's based on the jobs that they generate at Blue Oval City and what they do within the facility. If they have to change strategy in order to accommodate a market change or demand, then that's a Ford decision, but it wouldn't impact what they have agreed to do with the state.
Representative Gant.
Okay, great. The other question I have is around the pilot payments from Ford. Where are we at on that redistribution of funds going back out to the local infrastructure needs there in and around the Ford site?
So that there's been, in terms of just other companies coming on to the Blue Oval City, other suppliers has come on a little bit slower than what we anticipated, but those things it's happening. But really nothing significant to report at this point with respect to the pilot program. We can get more information with our team that's working on that and provide some more detail to you that I may not have in front of me now. But there's been a few announcements we've made. Some are not part of the overall Ford pilot, and then there's some that we're having conversations with that might apply as part of Ford's pilot. But we can give you more details after the meeting today if we can get that to you.
Representative Gant.
Thank you. So, and this is kind of another question that you may want to, provide the answer to me later. But as we looked at Ford and that project coming to Tennessee, and of course, everybody is still very excited about the project and looking forward to the economic prosperity that's going to take place over in West Tennessee. And the way those pilot payments are set up, and they're low on the front end, and as year by year goes by, that pilot payment increases out to the community for infrastructure. Is there a reason why it's so small starting out? Because the big question I get from a lot of mayors over there is, why wouldn't we make it larger on the front end and dwindle down as they go along? Because right now, as you know, the infrastructure issue is a big deal over there with a lot of the mayors, and as they plan to, the infrastructure to fit this type project. So explain to me, and like I said, you may have to come back to me later. That's fine. But how do we arrive at that equation of how that works?
Yeah, I wasn't commissioner at the time when those were established. I may have to get some go back to the team and get some insights and details to provide back to you on how that was structured and why, what were the reasons why it was structured in the way it was. I don't have enough knowledge to know how it originated.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Regarding the question about the Ford's change in direction from, the all electric to cutting that production and picking up production on the hybrid, how does that impact, potential suppliers like the battery production and those other, ancillary suppliers that we expected to be on that site? Are there other suppliers that would be involved in a hybrid that, might come in, or how does that work?
We have to sort of run off of what we're getting feedback from the customers and what they're feeling in the marketplace. And we're assuming that, these are global brands that have had a lot of success. They have a better sense of the market demands and the trends that are out there, and they're making significant investments themselves as businesses. So listening to how they're pivoting and how they're looking at it is, a larger discussion we're having. I think that some companies are looking at how they're shifting their focus a little bit toward whether it's all battery and electric or hybrid of some sort. A couple projects we're talking to now are in the process of, not making shifts. They're just they're just showing up and saying, here's what we think is happening. Our customer is asking us to produce X product for them because this is where they're going with it. So they're talking to the customer directly and getting the feedback on how their business plan will pan out over the next, 10 or 20 years. We haven't seen any real significant change in terms of what discussions we were having with companies 12 months ago, to today. The only thing that's really happening is this just slowing down in terms of making a final decision, because it's mostly economic related, cost of capital primarily, because it's just costing so much to construct a facility or buy equipment. And so I think many companies are trying to figure out what the economy is going to look like and the cost of capital is going to look like over the next 6 to 12 months. That seems to be more of what I'm hearing, as opposed to some massive shift in strategy from electric vehicle and the lack of absorption of that versus sort of more of a hybrid strategy that hasn't been as much of a discussion from our perspective.
Thank you. Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Commissioners, great to see you today, you and your team. A few years ago, there were some outside groups that showed up down here to the General Assembly, and I was on a committee that I don't serve on anymore. But they had concerns that Tennessee was giving grants and giving aid to various companies, and that they were breaching their accountability agreements, and that we weren't clawing the money back. And Braden, I can't remember if you were here then, but it may have been before you. But we met with them. We tried to address some of their concerns, and at the time, administratively, the Department of ECD was doing clawbacks, but there was nothing in statute. And so I think they were probably doing a pretty good job, but there was an appetite from both parties in the General Assembly that we wanted to go ahead and put that into statute, that if they breached those accountability agreements, that we would execute clawbacks, and that we also required that ECD report to this General Assembly once a year a list of the companies that were still had breached it, and we were executing clawbacks, and then how much money was still left that needed to be paid. And I've not seen one of those in a while, and I didn't know if you knew when that was coming out, or with some of the administration change, if maybe we had forgotten about that. But I'd like to see that. But I'd also like to just discuss in general, if you could just speak about clawbacks and kind of how they work. I know recently Smile Direct Club was a company that we gave funds to back in 2019, and they filed bankruptcy. Are we getting anything back from them? And if you could just speak about kind of y'all's philosophy on clawbacks with some of these companies that breach their agreements.
Sure. So I think the clawback provisions are great. We often get questions about incentives that we provide. And I think sometimes when folks question whether or not it works or the return on investment is there, I always have to remind folks that there is an accountability agreement and it is a contract and we enforce that contract. And I don't take that lightly. My team doesn't take it lightly. And, we want to work with companies. And, we always, we boast about being a business friendly state, and we are, but we don't want to confuse business friendly with just letting accountability agreements just go away and not enforcing it. We enforce it, and we are enforcing them as we speak. It's a contract. And if a company says they're going to hire X number of employees and we're going to incent based on that and they don't perform, then therefore there is a clawback. So it's important that we get the information, that it's apples to apples comparison, and that the companies understand and agree that the information they provide us is accurate. And once we come to a conclusion, we issue a letter, and then we work with those companies to recover those funds. It's not a fun conversation, but it's one that I would say the majority of those that we claw back dollars from understand it, and they will pay that. And it's part of doing business in our state. And I think it's very important that we continue to have those accountability agreements and we enforce those accountability agreements. As it relates to Smile Direct, they did file for bankruptcy. So through the bankruptcy process, we will be one of many, and I don't know where that stands and what the likelihood of that of us receiving any clawback dollars on that. I'm not sure what the status of that is. I can talk to our council and get a status report back to you all in that regard. I don't know if you've got any updates, Braden, on that.
Braden Stover, ECD, and we do a report every year on clawbacks that I can forward to you. But we do that annually, and it has the list of companies and where they stand. So I can forward that to your office.
Representative Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Now, do we put clawback provisions in place on all grant dollars, or is it just certain ones? Is it just like the fast track ones that we?
It's through our fast track program that we do that. Yes.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Braden. Let me know, because I honestly I don't serve on that committee anymore, so it's probably I'm not paying as close attention. But if you would forward me that, I'd like to see that again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And Madam Chairman, I want to ask, might they forward the report to you and then you distribute it to all of us? I think all of us are often asked by our constituents about whether or not the state does clawback money. So
Certainly, and as with all the other questions, there were some other things, I think earlier, Commissioner, you were going to
Yes.
provide some additional information. If you would just get those to my office, then we'll share it with the
Sure.
committee as a whole.
We will.
Thank you. Representative Lynn?
thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I probably have a question that Representative Boyd would love to ask. He's a great fan of nuclear energy, as are many of our constituents. But in the 23-24 budget, we appropriated $50 million to create a nuclear energy supply chain investment fund to help establish nuclear development and manufacturing ecosystem built for the future of Tennessee by providing grants and assistance to support nuclear power related businesses that choose to relocate or grow in our state. Can you fill us in on the status of this program? Many of us were very excited about this. It's not often states dip into this area, but it really is the future, many of us believe.
No, we're very excited about the nuclear fund and nuclear industry and just what's happening, generally speaking, in nuclear. We, as you all know, from our perspective, having energy is a key component to economic development. And the more projects that we engage, the larger projects that we're having conversations with that require a significant amount of power, it's a make or break opportunity, for the state. So we need to make sure that we're thinking about it, not only in the short term, but certainly in the long term. I might ask Braden Stover to answer specifically what's going on, because besides our legislative director, he is our major utility player for our team and wears a lot of hats for us, but one of which is the nuclear supply chain fund, and I'll let him answer some of those questions.
So Representative, I would say we excitedly will have an announcement soon. So I would say keep an eye on kind of that first one there, but the pipeline is strong. Tennessee is well positioned to be a leader in nuclear energy. specifically Oak Ridge and the greater kind of Oak Ridge area. As Commissioner was talking about T and Go earlier, Oak Ridge has really established itself as a nationwide leader in nuclear innovation. And so what we've seen is companies from across the country and really the world show interest in locating here, putting employees here and capital investment. And so Oak Ridge is kind of going through that nuclear renaissance, as they say, over in that area. And they're very excited about it. And I think a lot of it stems from there's not a lot of communities that are welcoming of nuclear energy, but they understand it over there. And companies get that. And so they're very excited to work with us and the locals to locate that investment. So a lot of exciting things coming. The pipeline is very strong around nuclear, and we're working with those companies daily to get that going.
Is membership in the council identified yet? Are those slots filled? And then also, is the council staffed? Is there a staff for them?
So the council operates separately, more of as a policy advisor type role for the governor. And then we at ECD oversee the 50 million, kind of working with companies to land that. But we take a lot of input from the council in terms, they're looking at workforce, emerging technologies, regulatory reforms. And so we take all of the input that they have because they're the experts in this field. I made a joke at ETech last year that I majored in science. It was political science, so it had nothing to do with nuclear. So we're all learning as well and taking advice from the experts over in that field. But we're really excited about where it's going, and we're working hand in hand with the council to make the best decisions.
Now, what about the $50 million? Has any of that been expended? It's supposed to be expended to companies that, would be interested in coming to our state or developing something with nuclear power in our state. Do we still have that whole 50 million, or has any been expended?
We have made some commitments to companies that I
Okay.
think we're waiting to hear back from. And like I mentioned, there is a project that we'll be announcing soon. And so that would be an expenditure there. But it's working the way as our fast track program is kind of working, where we've had to build the pipeline and these relationships with companies. So that's what we've been doing over the past 6 months, is really get to know these companies that we've traditionally not worked with, because they've been more in the innovative startup field and haven't had a ton of, kind of strength in the ecosystem there. So we've been building that up. And so that's where we are in this current position where the pipeline is a lot stronger. And I think we'll be having a lot more conversations about, supporting them financially and with other local investments over the next few months.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner, for coming and your team. Wanted to follow up on last year. There was a non-recurring investment for a large tract of land in Coffee County. Just wondered if that transaction has taken place, what the prospects look like on it. I'll be honest, I was a little nervous about it last year because we just finally got rid of a big tract of land after 25 years.
Yeah.
Could you give me an update on that, if you don't mind?
Sure. So that's the Coffee County I-24 project. And we officially closed on that, Jessica, maybe 2 weeks ago. It took a little bit. We were scheduled to close toward the end of the year, but just some closing issues that extended it a little bit. But anyway, we're closed, and the state owns the property. It's just under 2,000 acres. I think it was 3 families that came together and sold the property. We did that primarily because outside of a few other tracts of land around the state, the state didn't have anything of significant size to offer in case another opportunity came along. But we're approaching the Coffee County site a little bit differently in terms of not looking at it as a Blue Oval City mega site as much as more of an industrial site. And we see the vision for this project, or the property really, is probably having 3 or 4 companies co-locating on that site and diversify industry a little bit. There will be a new TCAT that will go on that, I think, as part of the overall TCAT strategy and what the governor put in from last budget. I think they've decided to put the new TCAT on that property as well. So that's a plus. Working with TDOT, working with TDEC, working with all the agencies to make sure that we've thought through all the utilities, the right of ways and all those things right now. But that's where it stands. Interestingly, we have a lot of interest with projects in that location for a variety of reasons. One, the property is attractive, but also that part of the state, access to interstates, access to workforce has made that an attractive area for some of these projects. And the ones we're talking to are very diverse, which is nice, what we're trying to get.
Thank you. One more question.
Go ahead.
The the governor's rolled out a plan in regards to F&E tax. I know franchise and excise tax is one of the incentive programs you sometimes give businesses as it relates to they're relocating here and making large financial investments in our communities. I guess my question, since the revision, there are some formularies that might impugn the values of those F&E tax credits that we gave as incentives through the franchise and excise tax. I just wondered, because of the proposed change, have you heard from any of those people in your office about the change in F&E tax and how it might impact their deductibility of franchise and excise tax or our original investments with them?
I don't know, Jessica, have you any conversations from your side? No. I mean, we talked about that when this first came, when it became, we became aware of the discussion on the franchise tax. These companies, whether they take advantage of those opportunities outside of once we've made, the state's provided the incentive, we don't track within those companies if they've taken advantage of any tax opportunities or not. And it hasn't, there's nobody that's called in or it's not become some issue of discussion from our perspective since this became aware of the franchise tax.
Right. I was just a little bit concerned because if we give somebody something that's worth $1 today and tomorrow it changes, I just want to make sure that it reduces or that amount goes down because of the statute change that we made. Are we susceptible or liable to, a provision to remedy that? And so just wanted to know if you'd heard from anybody. I'm glad you haven't heard from anybody. Maybe it's just not a big deal at all. So thank you.
I'll talk to our tax team within our department just to see if there's been anybody that's reached out or had any discussions about that, just to make sure. But as far as I know, we have not.
Thank you.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, I know that state of Mississippi has made a big announcement about another maybe SK company that's going to be landing somewhere near Tennessee in the near future. And I know that's not something you're doing, but I just wondered, have they reached out to you in any way about providing employment or whatever? But it's going to be somewhere not too far, I think, from where Blue Oval is. So I just wondered if there's been any kind of connection made.
There's not a direct connection at this point. My guess is that just like with many large projects like that, Tennessee is going to benefit from other tier 1 or tier 2 providers, suppliers to that project, and they'll likely locate in the state of Tennessee, just like if we land something in our state, Mississippi benefits as well. But as far as of today, no, there has not been any discussions with anybody on that with that regard.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner, just to switch gears a bit, a couple years ago, we allocated in the budget, I believe, $20 million for, it was unusual in the fact that I don't think we'd ever done anything similar before or since, but we put those monies into the budget for a combination tourism, economic development opportunity in Jackson, Tennessee with the Great Wolf Lodge. Can you just bring us up to date on where we stand? We've been rolling that money forward for a good while now. So can you just update us on progress?
Actually, I know Braden's been having conversations with the team on that. I might ask him to give an update.
Sure. So the last update that we have is that there has been an agreement signed with the locals, with the IDB. And so the land, I think, is in a good position to move forward. And then our legal team is working through the accountability agreement and getting that in a good place. So we are still working, I would say, pretty regularly, daily, if not weekly, on getting that project moving and getting it secured and finished as quickly as possible.
And I believe that because there was with COVID and other things, there were delays, and I believe we put a deadline timeline on that. Can you remind us what that is and likelihood of accomplishing it in that time frame?
Sure. I would just be going off of memory, but I believe that was the end of this year was the agreement to have something moving at least in the ground or land purchased. So that's kind of the deadline that we're moving towards to make as much progress as possible towards that.
Thank you, and we appreciate you all continuing to kind of monitor that and work through it. As I said, I know it's something a little bit out of the normal ECD wheelhouse that we ask you to take on. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I don't have any other questioners on my list. So Commissioner, we're going to give you the prize for brevity of your presentation. And thank you
Not a
and
lot to
your
talk
team
about.
for being here at 8 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
To go through that with us. I'm sorry we didn't even ask you if you needed a cup of coffee, but again, thank you for being here. We appreciate the work that ECD has done. I, for one, would not like to contemplate where we would be in our budget without the projects and the work that ECD over the years has brought into Tennessee and the revenues that has generated, both, obviously corporately, but the jobs and the sales tax revenue that we live off of from the people who are employed by the companies that you have either encouraged to come to Tennessee, or we have encouraged them to expand here versus going other places. So I continue to be proud of the fact that I, for a short time, was part of the ECD team, and I really do appreciate the work that's done there. So thank you, and thanks to the few friends I have there who are still around. So please, hello from me. Thank you all for being here.
I would like to I would just say this, that I appreciate our partnership with the legislature and particularly with this committee. And I'll say this, that it shows the projects that we, whether it's CEOs of these companies or the site selection consultants, they recognize the alignment we have, and that goes a long way. And I think Tennessee is winning because there's alignment, and we got a lot of support. When it comes to economic development, I think everybody understands the value of Tennessee being a strong business-friendly state. And because of that, we're winning these projects, and people want to be in our state. They want to do business in our state. They want to employ Tennesseans, and we can't do it without your support. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
We're now going to ask our folks from General Services, Commissioner Branscombe and her team, if they would come forward and let the record show we're on time. Also, as part of this presentation, members, we will have Mr. Bright with the Mega Site Authority. I know there's a lot of questions and interest in that particular subject, so that will also be a part of this presentation this morning. So, Commissioner.
Yes, good morning, Commissioner Hazelwood and committee members. I am Christy Branscombe, Commissioner of the Department of General Services. Assisting me today, Deputy Commissioner and Director of STREAM, John Hall. Also a Vehicle and Asset Management Director and Assistant Commissioner, Mr. Bob Williams, and also Mr. Michael Winston, who is the Director of Financial Management. And there are others here of my leadership team that are in the audience that can answer any questions that we are unable to answer. And also Mr. Clay Bright from the CEO of Megasite Authority. He's the CEO of the Megasite Authority. I believe he's here, or he will be here any minute. The Megasite Authority is administratively attached to the Department of General Services, which is why Clay will be here. So I want to do a brief description of our department and its work, and then we'll make the comments on our budget. Our department works daily to support our sister agencies and state government to make it easier for them to deliver their programs and services directly to the people of Tennessee. The bulk of the work includes the activities of 4 external service divisions and 1 smaller internal support division. The State of Tennessee Real Estate Asset Management Group, or STREAM, that division operates, manages, and maintains general government real estate assets. Their work includes asset management, capital improvement, and capital maintenance projects, brokerage, and property acquisition and disposition. Our Vehicle and Asset Management Division manages, maintains the state's motor vehicle fleet, including all motorized equipment, also THP autos. It's responsible for the policies and procedures that affect the best maintenance, repair, operation, and administration of our fleet. This division also handles the sale of state surplus property and the distribution of state and federal property within state government. The surplus program produces revenue for the state and also works with local governments and eligible nonprofits to help source them things that they may need, but whatever isn't needed is made available to the public for sale, still generating revenue. Our Document Solutions Division provides a wide variety of printing, graphics, scanning, videography, photography services. They also operate a warehousing management service supplying state agencies with bulk products, and a postal services unit for our incoming and outgoing mail in the state. Our Division of Administration comprises several of the smaller internal administrative offices I mentioned earlier. It consists of our department's financial management, administrative services, communications, strategy, internal audit, and legal affairs. The Central Procurement Office, or CPO, is responsible for the centralized procurement and contracting for services and goods. The office focuses on producing cost savings while ensuring transparency and accountability in the procurement and contracting process. The Governor's Office of Diversity Business Enterprise is also a part of the CPO, and this office is a central point of contact to attract, assist minority-owned, women-owned businesses, businesses owned by persons with disabilities, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and small business enterprises interested in competing for state of Tennessee contracting and procurement activities. 94% of the businesses certified by GoDBE are small businesses. According to Forbes and the Small Business Administration, 99.9% of all businesses in the United States are small businesses. And in Tennessee, 99.5% of those businesses are all small businesses. So the work that we do in the GoDBE office is critical to this state. Just wanted to highlight a few exciting items that we have going on in GoDBE right now and give you an update. In FY23, purchases from certified diversity businesses increased by more than $65 million to $1,318,259. This is a record high and a 6.2% increase from the previous fiscal year of $1,051 million. Since FY25, this program, when it was first getting established, GoDBE can report that the state has paid more than $7.6 billion to our certified businesses for products purchased and services performed. But what's really incredible is that since FY19, the state of Tennessee has increased what it has spent with these diverse and small businesses by 67%. This is wonderful news and presents great opportunities for the diverse and small businesses in our state. Okay, so now we'll discuss our budget request. So our first cost increase for the upcoming fiscal year will begin with personnel-related costs. The first point I'd like to make that these positions do not increase the headcount. We are requesting recurring funding to reclassify 4 vacant positions from Document Solutions into other divisions within our department. We can use these positions in Document Solutions because of the cost savings we have generated from our recent consolidation of postal and printing units. The consolidation has allowed us to improve efficiency so we can do more with fewer positions now. So the first position we would like to reclassify is a request for $76,600 for recurring funding to reclassify one of the positions to a CPO sourcing account specialist. And that's to assist with the growing volume of procurements we have and we are receiving. The next request is for 2 positions to go to Stream. that it's for $153,100 recurring funding to reclassify those two positions due to workload increasing and responsibilities associated with volume of projects and land transactions. The first is a new customer relations staff member who could help manage the rising workload from increased leasing volumes. We're experiencing increased leasing volumes because we've been working very diligently at reducing any holdover or lease amendments, and it takes a really long time to get into these long-term leases for our departments and agencies. The customer relations staff member really holds their hand as they go through this process, make sure they have the space that they need, the furniture that they need, and the AV needs and equipments are met as well. The second position is a land agent who will help close transactions for our customer departments and agencies within appropriate timeframes. Those timeframes are getting longer and longer just to the increased volume. As an example, in FY18, 3 land agents handled on average about 19 transactions annually. This last year, we've experienced a dramatic increase, and that increase since FY18 has been about 120%, but last year, they were handling 47 transactions for every land agent. So we really need the help in this department, and that's why we've requested to redeploy that vacant position in Document Solutions. The last personnel request is $55,200 in recurring funding to support transferring and reclassifying one of the Document Solutions positions to Vehicle and Asset Management. This funding is included in our VAM cost increase, which I'll talk about here in just a moment, but it's really to support the daily transactional work in VAM, specifically registering and tagging vehicles, distributing fuel cards, tracking fuel usage, and assisting our many customers. So the next slide, you'll see where we're talking about managing a modern fleet and what we need to do. We're making a request for cost increase in Vehicle and Asset Management for $16,352,600 for replacement to the state's fleet and increases in fleet maintenance, which includes repair and fuel costs associated with keeping safe vehicles on the road. Our state fleet and state departments need the fleet to fulfill their missions, and to take care of the fleet really helps us to reduce the state's risk and cost associated with an aging fleet. Also, this request will include that $55,200 that I had mentioned previously for the personnel change from Document Solutions to VAM. So that's included. The $55,200 is included in this request. So let's talk about fleet replacement for just a moment. Based on current pricing, it would cost us more than $240 million to replace the state's existing vehicle and equipment fleet. Based on the current fleet age, we average out at about 5 years for automobiles, 8 years for equipment. But if we did that, VAM would need $47.1 million each year to replace the existing fleet that is aging out. This is $12.6 million more than our current budget of $34.5 million. So what we would like to propose to do is to have that increase we're going to bridge that gap over the next 2 years. It means that FY25, we were making a request for $6.3 million of that. That's half of the 12.6. And then next year we'll come with a similar request to try to catch up our fleet. We just don't want the fleet getting behind. It costs more to maintain. It's more difficult to manage. Finally, we're asking for $10 million for fleet maintenance. This request is to adjust the recurring budget to reflect actual expenditures for maintenance and repairs. So the next slide, we will go to our base budget reductions. This year, agencies were asked to limit their requests for new positions and to also submit reductions to offset potential cost increases. So after thoroughly reviewing our vacancies, we determined we had the 4 additional positions in Document Solutions that could be repurposed. To offset the funding needed to reclassify these positions, we did an in-depth analysis of our division's budget compared to our actuals. And we are able to reduce our operating expenditures in our distribution center by $284,900 to align our expenses more accurately with our current level of spend and to cover these positions' reclassification costs. Project Tetris is another place we've been able to get a reduction. DGS, just like all the other departments and agencies across state government, have reduced our square footage within the Tennessee Tower by almost 24,000 rentable square feet. So this allows us to take a rent reduction, and it resulted in $351,000 for this rent reduction. $43,700 is state funding. The balance of $307,300 comes from other and interdepartmental funding. And we'll give an update on Project Tetris, of course, here in just a moment. Slide 7, this is our supplemental request. There is one of those this year, and it's for FY24 for Tennessee Serves. This is an initiative of the First Lady's office, which is administratively attached to the Department of General Services. So now let's discuss our capital request. As you can see in our totals at the bottom of the slide for FY25 capital budget, we are proposing a capital outlay program totaling over $353 million in capital improvements and capital maintenance projects. This consists of 7 improvement and 20 capital maintenance projects. The next slide is the bar chart. We talked about this last year, and this really focuses on capital funding over the last several years. Obviously, 2016 through 2024 are approved budgets. 2025 is a requested budget. What you'll see is the funding has obviously decreased this year. We had great years in 2022 and a really great year in 2023, but the funding has slowed down for 2025. Just for clarification, the capital improvement projects are in blue, and those are described as projects that provide new facilities or more materially extend the useful life of existing facilities and improving or changing the function of an existing facility. Capital maintenance, on the other hand, is major non-routine repairs and replacements unrelated to new construction, costing more than $250,000, and that is the red that you see on the bar graph. And again, this is related to funding. If we go to the next slide, we'll actually look at actual numbers of projects. While we may have fewer projects in 2025, as you can see, we have plenty that we're still working on 2023 and 2024. And as many of you know, our projects span several years. Again, blue improvements and red is maintenance. So we go to capital improvements. I want to highlight some of our capital improvement projects. The first line item you'll see is for $233.1 million, specifically for DCS or Department of Children's Services projects. It is for design and partial construction funding to develop 3 new facilities. Now, I believe most of you are aware that we've been focusing on providing the facilities that DCS needs to meet their mission, and this is continued work towards that effort. The first facility is a new Woodland Hills facility. It is a staff secure facility. It'll have 72 beds and be located here in Nashville. The $233.1 million includes design and full construction funding. The second and third facilities are in Summerville, Tennessee. We will construct a new John S. Wilder Youth Development Center, a new hardware secure facility that features 72 beds. And eventually at that site in Summerville, we will construct a new staff secure facility with 48 beds. Now, the $233.1 million includes construction funding for the hardware secure facility and design funding for the staff secure facility. We will come back in a future funding request for the staff secure facility for $48 million. We do not need to build that until we've, of course, built the hardware secure facility. So that's why we'll be coming back and requesting that funding at a later date. The next 3 items are for TDEC, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. The first one, Cardwell Mountain State Archaeological Park, is a conversion of an archaeological area currently associated with Rock Island State Park. We're going to be converting that into a new state archaeological park. The project will add a visitor center, maintenance facility, and several park amenities, including things like bathhouses, picnic pavilions, playgrounds, and trails. Head of the Crow State Park is a conversion of a portion of South Cumberland State Park into a new state park. The project will again include a visitor center, maintenance facility, and items, park amenities that include items such as bathhouses, picnic pavilions, playgrounds, and trails. And finally, Hiawassee Scenic River State Park will improve the existing campground to include campsite access and grading, and park amenities to include 2 new bathhouses and related infrastructure. Next, we'll talk about capital maintenance, and we're going to highlight 3 projects in particular. The first project is lighting upgrades at the DCS Mountain View Youth Development Center in Dandridge. This project includes replacing and upgrading of all exterior and interior light fixtures with LED lighting systems. So we want to continue to maintain our youth development centers as best we can, and we want to focus our efforts on several of these improvement and maintenance projects at DCS. And obviously, replacing for LED lighting systems has a long-term operational impact for us as well. The next item highlights 9 maintenance projects across the state for our military readiness centers. We believe it's important to do the essential maintenance at these centers, of course, and we'll be doing projects like replacing roof systems, installing backup generators, mechanical and electrical equipment needs, and interior and exterior building envelope repairs. The final maintenance project we'd like to highlight is the grant to replace the roof system at the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. Believe it or not, that museum now is over 30 years old, and we need to take care of this national treasure. So I'm going to turn it over now to Deputy Commissioner and Director of STREAM, John Hall, and he's going to give us an update of several of our ongoing projects.
Good morning. I'd like to highlight several of the projects. Is this on for you? Okay, good. Thank you. These are our ARPA funded projects, and the first one on this slide is the project that we have as our Department of Health State Lab Replacement Facility located in our RS Gas campus, which is on Hart Lane here in Nashville. The current lab was actually constructed in 1953 as a tuberculosis hospital and converted to the state lab in the 1980s. The new replacement lab is a $200 million project that we have of 182,000 square feet, which is 35% larger than the current health lab. And we expect that project to be complete during the summer of 2026. The next item we have for you are 3 projects actually for the Department of Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. These DIDS projects are the seating and positioning clinics that their regional campuses, which are in Arlington, in Nashville, and in Greenville, Tennessee. These clinics fabricate unique wheelchairs and beds for patients with disabilities. If you have not visited one of these clinics, I highly encourage you to make a visit someday to see the vital work that they do. The old clinics that they currently use are in these buildings were built in the 1960s that were initially the cafeterias for these campuses. The new seating and positioning clinics will be state-of-the-art facilities and provide space for the proper care of their patients. And you see the different costs for those facilities that we have. The estimated completion for these 3 facilities is also in the summer of 2026. Another benefit by doing these projects is that it allows the state to exit the old 1960s buildings and to sell the excess property that we have on these campuses. So just for instance, in Arlington, we recently closed a transaction for 353 acres that we sold to the city of Arlington for about $4 million. We'll do a similar transaction with the Greenville Tusculum Industrial Development Board in Greenville, Tennessee, for about $1.5 million. That money that will then be put back into the trust funds for the DIDD folks. The next project I'd like to highlight is the War Memorial Building and Legislative Plaza, which also includes the Motlow Tunnel where you see our fence these days. So we have a construction project going on over there. So the War Memorial Building is obviously, it's undergoing significant renovations, which include new plumbing, electrical, sprinkler, and communication systems. Once it is complete, the Attorney General's office that is located in the UBS building, a lease in downtown Nashville, will relocate to the North Tower of the War Memorial Building. And then the South Tower, the office space that has been in there, is going to be unassigned for the future. We'll keep that as flexible office space. That project for War Memorial will be done in the first quarter of 2026. Work on the Legislative Plaza building and the Motlow Tunnel will start in early summer of this year. This renovation will include creating a new Capitol Visitor Center, a new and expanded Veterans Museum, a conference center, food service, and a new entrance to the plaza with bus parking and offices for veterans groups and also the Tennessee Historical Society. This will become the primary entrance to the Capitol for the public. The repairs to the Motlow Tunnel will correct water infiltration issues that have been going on for a very long period of time. Since Motlow entrance is directly beneath the stairs and the pedestal area leading from Martin Luther King Boulevard up to the Capitol Hill area, we will need to close those during our construction. We will also renovate the War Memorial Plaza itself to improve the layout to make it more of a park-like setting. This will include removing the old fountains, which don't work, and replacing the granite pavers so that it is not slippery during wet conditions. We expect that work to be completed during the last quarter of 2026 and certainly in time for the next inauguration. One other point to make is there will be additional fencing put up around that entire city block in early summer as we get ready to do the renovations on Legislative Plaza and the War Memorial Plaza, and fencing around the stairs which come up around the Motlow Tunnel. And that'll be there during the duration of this project. The next project to highlight is certainly MELITA, our multi-agency law enforcement training academy, where we had a groundbreaking in September of 2023. We have been working with the Sheriff's Association, the Police Association, all of our state agencies as we work on the design for this campus. They're very excited about the new training features that they will see. Just to highlight a few of them on the next slide, we are currently in the design development phase. At this point, working with all those different groups and acquiring our federal and state permits required for construction. We expect to start the infrastructure phase in the next couple of months. And as we put in the utilities and the roads for this campus, we will then start on the training campus facilities, which will include, as you may see on this slide, the classrooms, the training features, the housing and dining section, and the firing range. The final area of this campus will be the Emergency Vehicle Operations Course, or EVOC track, since we will need the dirt from the excavation of the other buildings to lay for the foundation of this track. We expect the training academy to be open by the fourth quarter of 2026 and the EVOC track during 2027. As the commissioner noted, this is Project Tetris. So we are in the process of moving a lot of state agencies around in downtown Nashville and in Metro Center. So this project to us is actually 25 individual projects to consolidate the office space for them. We have worked with each state agency to review the operations for their departments and to consolidate those for the long term, as the staff can work remotely at this point. Project Tetris is 44% complete, which means 11 of the 25 projects are complete. By the end of 2025, when Project Tetris is finally complete, the final move is actually to move TDOT from the James K. Polk building to the Tennessee Tower. We will then have reduced over 1 million square feet of state space during that period of time, $6.4 million of reduced operating expenses in our state-owned buildings, and another $8.8 million of leased space rental costs will also be reduced as part of that million square feet. As we reduce the state's footprint through Project Tetris, we're eliminating these real estate operating costs for all of our different state agencies. As you saw in an earlier slide, we can reduce our operating budget for FY25 because of our consolidation through Project Tetris. 5 other agencies have rent reductions from Project Tetris in their FY25 budget, totaling $1.9 million in recurring reductions. And there will be more in the years ahead as we move through this project. The mega site, the mega Blue Oval City is obviously under construction in West Tennessee. Our part of that for general services is to develop the water and wastewater systems for this project. And so we're out there, we've completed the 36.5 miles of pipeline, 18-inch pipeline, from the mega site to the Mississippi River. We are also moving through construction of the water and wastewater treatment plants, the 7 water wells that are on the site, the pump station in Covington, Tennessee, and a North Water Tower. So those are all on schedule and they're all within budget, and we expect the completion of those by the end of summer 2025.
So Chair Hazelwood, this concludes our prepared remarks. My team and I'll gladly respond to any questions you or the committee may have.
Thank you, Commissioner Ranscom. And I see Mr. Bright has joined us. We'll ask him if he would come forward too. I think we may have some questions regarding the mega site that we might need his input on. So we'll just go ahead and get him up front. But I have first on my list, well, before I do that, I think it was on slide 3, when we talked about the small businesses that are certified and doing business with the state of Tennessee. And
Yes.
you pointed out 99.5% of all the businesses in Tennessee are small businesses. Our friends at NFIB will be, they'll be sharing that video clip, I'm sure. But they are a critical part of our economy. Just curious, there was a 6.2% increase that you mentioned from 2022 to 23, but there was a very sharp increase from 21 to 22. Is that based on just the amount of dollars that we had coming in, but COVID? What was different from 21 to 22 that brought us that increased number of contract dollars with
Yeah,
small businesses?
I think for one, as we were coming out of the pandemic. I mean, and that caused the state to be more involved in doing business and had more procurements out there. And that helped a lot of these small businesses across the state to get more opportunities. Mike Perry, the Chief Procurement Officer, is in the audience. Mike, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Yes, Chairman. Mostly we have achieved this through matchmaking procurement opportunities with our certified businesses. So our folks in GoDBE attend all pre-proposal and pre-bid conferences and build relationships with prime and subcontractors. We also do a great deal of outreach all across the state, attending everything from chambers of commerce to African-American chambers of commerce, diversity marketplace events. And by the way, we're planning a huge event in April at the Music City Center, in which we will invite certified businesses from across the state to enjoy procurement opportunities. We'll have all our state agencies there, as well as some private sector partners. But that's really how we continue to achieve this increased spend.
Right. Thank you for that. It's remarkable increase. So obviously a lot of work, and I would imagine that contributed greatly to the bottom lines of a number of small businesses in Tennessee. So we're grateful for that. Chairman Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and it's great to see you all today. And the question I have is pertaining to the motor vehicle management. And in y'all's proposed budget, you're requesting $16.4 million for new vehicles, and that's on a recurring basis, and also for an increased cost of maintenance, repair, and fuel cost. Could you give us kind of a breakdown of how much of that is for actual vehicles and how much of that is for maintenance?
Yeah, I'll allow Assistant Commissioner Bob Williams and Michael Winston. You may want to support that answer on the financial side.
Let's see if I get this right. Can you hear me now? Bob Williams, Assistant Commissioner of AM. It breaks down into 10 million and 6 million. And the 10 million is for the increased cost of vehicles. They just keep getting, I'm sorry, I have that backwards. 10 million is for the maintenance, 6 million is for the vehicles. The vehicles keep getting expensive every year. The costs are quickly escalating. They seem to be plateauing now, but from 2020 to now, they increased large percentages each year. So we're just playing catch up. That's what that is, to try to keep us where we are, not get more aggressive, but keep us at the same aging fleet we are. The rest is for maintenance. One of the challenges with new vehicles is the technology is getting really expensive. So where before, if I'll give you an example. I have a scratch on my tail light of my pickup. It's a 2021 model. That tail light itself is $800, just the tail light, if I was to go to AutoZone and buy it. 10 years ago, in a 10-year-old pickup, that tail light was $40 from AutoZone. So it's the cost to maintain them is getting a lot more expensive.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. And so what is the service life of a vehicle, and do y'all age it based on the age of the vehicle or the number of miles that are put on it? And I'll go ahead and ask you a follow-up question. When y'all purchase new vehicles, do y'all decide it just based on cost, or do y'all have a certain preference or type of vehicle that you're looking for?
Great question. Get it a lot. So there's no magic age for the vehicle itself. It all depends on application and all depends on the money. If we don't have the money to replace it, we're going to hang on to it. If it has a light use, but it's a critical use, but it's a light use, then we can let that thing hang around for quite a few years, especially if the agency themselves doesn't have a lot of money or funding, and so they want to be a little tight with it. And then in other cases, the use is so heavy and they have the money to replace it, we need to cycle it out pretty quick. So there's no magic number. It, as a rule, around 5 years, but we have a lot of stuff that's 8, 9, 10 years. We don't, we've got a lot of stuff less than 5 years, but it's just in its cycle when we would normally hold on to it. So we would like to replace stuff around 5 years, and that's the money is needed to make sure we can, but we hold on to it if we can. If it's running well and it's got good miles on it, then we don't replace it just to replace it. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. So if various state agencies need a new vehicle, is that included in your 16.4 million, or does that come out of their budget? And then do they have the authority to go get it, or do they request it through y'all?
Right. So we are a centralized model in state government. So we own and manage all the fleet. The agencies pay us for that. You could see it as they lease it from MDM, from General Services. So, but when I make the expenditure, they refund the money to us monthly. So they have to have it in their budget, just like I have to have it in my budget. So that's the way it works.
Chairman Hawk.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and want to begin with a bit of accolades for the commissioner. I'm the father of 2 young daughters, 23 and 12, and Commissioner publicly congratulate you on being a Women of Influence winner in last fall, 2023. You're certainly a role model for a lot of young ladies out there, and I want to congratulate you publicly for that.
Thank you very much, Representative Hawk.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
that.
I do want to go down the road where Chairman Boyd is going, talking about the motor vehicle fleet. And does Department of General Services, do we keep fund balances? Do we have carryovers and reserves? And is there any type of reserve available to help with motor vehicle fleet?
So there is a reserve, and Michael can probably give you a little more depth into that. As an example, this year, I am having to go into that reserve in order to handle all the requests from agencies that they have funding for. So it's kind of that initial cost where we, if you will, write a check for the asset. You guys authorize a certain amount of spending each year. And so that's what I stay within. But on normal replacements where they have paid us back for the asset itself, there are years like this year where we have to go into that reserve to access it.
Thank you. So that's, I don't want to say somewhat of a temporary fund, but it's being refilled as we're going through. Okay.
Kind of a rotating fund, if you will.
Nodded the head, was thankful. And again, Commissioner Branscombe, Deputy Commissioner Hull, thank you for the conversation about Green Valley. I know there's been much gnashing of teeth over the last several years, but I'm encouraged that we're in a very good place now, and both the community and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities are really going to benefit from what's going on. So again, a thank you for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just to add, we are incredibly excited to be able to do these projects for DIDD. One of the first trips I took was out there. Deputy Commissioner Hall said this earlier, but if you've not seen the work that they do at a DIDD facility, I can't encourage you enough. It was a game changer for me and helped me realize just how important the work is that we do here at the state of Tennessee.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you, Commissioner, and your team for being here today. I just had a question about Tennessee Serves. The governor included in his budget this year, a little over $561,000 recurring for one additional position. For that, I was hoping maybe since if you could tell us what that position is for and what their role might be. It's a considerable amount of money. And also if you could speak to that department has 35 vacancies currently. It looks like 18 of them have been more than 12 months. Just wondered if you could speak to the difficulties, I guess, or challenges of the work not getting done because we don't have those seats filled, and whether you expect those to continue to be unfilled.
Yeah, so the First Lady's office is administratively attached to DGS, but they do work with our Director of Financial Management, Mr. Michael Winston, so he can answer your question regarding the position.
Good morning. Thank you for the questions. There we go. Hey, that's better. Thank you for
Mr.
the
Winston,
questions.
for the record, just identify yourself and your title, please.
Thank you, Chairman Hazelwood. Michael Winston, Director of Financial Management. So to clarify on the Tennessee Serves request, there's two components to that $560,000. $500,000 is recurring to fund the Tennessee Serves initiative. That's the First Lady's initiative to encourage volunteerism by Tennesseans across the state. $61,000 is to fund that one new position. So it'll be an administrative services position to help manage those projects. They plan those projects. They get volunteers together. They buy the $500,000 goes to what the actual projects are, whether that's the materials they need, the supplies they need for those projects that they do throughout the year. To your second question about vacancies, we do have about 35 vacancies out of our total position count. That's a little less than maybe 10% of our staff. As of yesterday, I can report that only 11 of those are long-term vacancies, and we do have plans for the vast majority of those 11 positions. 3 of them are actually in our, 4 of them are in our budget request. They're the vacancies that we're transferring to other divisions so that we can put those to better use. And then the other positions are in various stages of either there's a current posting, there's a position waiting to be filled. So we've been very judicious in how we use our position count in general services. The majority of our divisions operate like a business. We have to generate the revenue from the services we provide in order to cover those. So we do try to be smart and make sure that we don't fill a vacancy until we truly need the position and we know we're going to generate the revenue to cover it.
Yeah. Just to follow up to that real quick, the balance carry forward from around June of last year to this year was around $300,000. So do you see that the $500,000 in addition to that you just described as being non-recurring, that would put the amount around $800,000? Is that the desired amount?
I apologize if I said non-recurring earlier. The request in this year's budget is $500,000 recurring.
Okay.
The Tennessee Serves initiative has been around since fiscal year 21. It started off with a $250,000 non-recurring appropriation, and it's been non-recurring until FY24. The initial budget for FY24 approved last year did not have any funding for the Tennessee Serves. The thought was to continue to use that carry forward balance that you mentioned, the $300,000. But as the First Lady's office has worked through their plans for this year, they have big plans between now and the end of the year. So that's why they've requested the FY24 supplemental to get it back up closer to that $500,000, which they had in FY23. And then going forward, the $500,000 to support that initiative going forward. From my conversations with them, that is kind of the level they think it should be at going forward. And that's why they need the extra position so that they can manage the increase in those number of projects and all the Tennesseans are trying to help through those projects.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I did want to follow up completely different subject matter, Commissioner, regarding the Mega Site Authority, and you may be the person or somebody from your team might answer this. I have Chair Lady Hazelwood and I have the distinct honor of serving on TASER together. And so there are some West Tennessee cities and counties that are on there that are surrounding the Blue Oval properties and what we're doing there. Of course, I don't have to tell you guys, but this committee knows we spent a lot of money there in infrastructure and still underway, really, with water and sewer projects. During our hearing at TASER, we were communicated with that when the project was going forward as it relates to water and sewer, many municipalities along that 30-mile stretch of water line and sewer line requested from the authority and from general services and consequently from the state to be able to stick a straw in that huge water main because we're going to have thousands, tens of thousands of new people hopefully move and live there and raise their families there. And to be able to get water services there would be extremely important. Can someone kind of share with me so I can go back to those individuals and do a better job of explaining why would we not let those communities connect to those water and sewer lines? I get it if it's a sewer, we got to pump sewage a long ways, but you can overcome the head with a small pump there and pump it to the wastewater treatment plant, because these rural communities are not going to be able to build a wastewater treatment plant. So it seems to me like it was a little short-sighted, particularly since we know so many people are going to be moving there. But I wondered if somebody could help answer that question for me as to the why.
Yes, I can begin the answer, and I'm sure Clay Bright will want to jump in as the CEO of the mega site. And John may even have a point he would like to make. But the way the mega site authority was set up in West Tennessee, for the mega site authority of West Tennessee, the legislation said it would only serve the mega site. So that was the directive from the legislation that was passed. I know there were discussions well beforehand about who may want to jump on, who may want to be a part of this. But it's like, where do you draw the line? And we had a very full pipeline coming out already. So, where do you start? Where do you stop? And it was a question. And, we already have a full capacity there. So, in fact, if we had added anything, we would have immediately had to gone to even a bigger pipeline, a bigger pumping station, more treatment facilities. So the infrastructure number that the state invested into this project would have been even much larger. That's the part that I know that I can answer. Clay, if you have anything to add to that? No, he does not. Do you have anything to add to that, John?
Yeah, Representative Williams, Commissioner is absolutely correct. We sized that pipeline, pump stations, all those things for the numbers, frankly, that Ford gave us. Is they said, look, we need about 3.5 million gallons a day of wastewater. We built a system for 5.1. So we still have about 500 acres out there that a future company would be able to come. So the extra capacity is ultimately for them. The same thing for the water. We built a water system for 7 million gallons a day. And that's based on, again, what Ford told us, what they needed, along with a reserve for new companies that would come to the site.
And there are more companies who are locating there, of course, as support partners, who will also be relying on that pipeline. So we needed additional capacity for those as well.
Chairman Williams.
Thank you. I recognize that the legislature issued these dollars, provided these dollars to the Mega Site Authority, provided those dollars for infrastructure, more than $900 million. We did that. Did the Mega Site Authority or your department communicate with the legislature that these communities were asking to be connected to it? Or did anyone look at what the cost might be to upsize that by 15 or 20%, knowing that we were going to create that? Or did we simply just want to only provide services to the mega site and what we thought might be a proposed employer?
Well, what I can tell you, I think there's a policy decision made around that, but not at our level about, whether we include others or not. And that's why I say the legislation was proposed that way. And of course, we abide by that legislation.
Representative Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Before I get into my questions, I'd be remiss if I did not say good morning to fellow Dixon County native Assistant Commissioner Williams. I've had the pleasure of coaching both of his children in cross country and track and field, and his son Drew, who's now running at Freed Hardeman, is the best campaign intern I've ever had. So my question's about the multi-law agency enforcement training academy. The department's requested $132,700 for salaries. And it's my understanding that last year we appropriated 382,200 for the department to establish 2 positions. So my questions are, have we filled those 2 positions? And then if so, then why are we asking for additional monies now?
So the plan is to fill those positions by the end of this fiscal year. So yes, they will both be filled, and we're in that process now. So I think that's all there is to that. We will fill it this year. We did get an increase. This is what I was going to say. There was an increase to those funds just based on the increase in pay that was put forth and approved by the legislature for state of Tennessee executive team members.
Barrett?
So is the salary increase that's requested still for these 2 positions?
Yes.
It's not creating new positions?
Not creating a new position, no, sir.
Okay. And is that what is the reason for that increase?
Well, everyone across state government got an increase in pay. And so we also had to increase the pay of this position to attract the kind of executive director for Melita, because it's typical. I mean, it's comparable to a commissioner level. And so that's how it was graded when DOHR went through their work to elevate the pay grades in state government.
Representative Barrett?
Madam Chair, if you'll let me bounce around a little bit, on the capital budget part of things, there's a request for Department of Children's Services. I think it's 233 million for
Yes, sir.
capital outlay for Woodland Hills and Wilder. I guess my question is this request with these 2 additions or capital outlay projects, is that going to be enough to satisfy the needs for DCS?
Well, we have a program. Some of you may be aware, we've worked with DCS well over the last year and a half, a lot, to help them with their facilities. I had visited the facilities. John has visited the facilities. We went with DCS. We also looked at other facilities that were designed and constructed recently to understand the differences in what we had at the state of Tennessee and what other locations offered. And after going through the real estate development plan with them, we have several projects. We're going to be building intake and assessment centers, which we do not have. And we have several of those already funded through the State Building Commission. We are looking at Woodland Hills, as I said, to do a staff secure here. We're rebuilding the hardware secure facility in West Tennessee at Somerville at Wilder. We're also building another staff secure facility there. And we're also upgrading things across the state, as for example, our DCS project at Mountain View out in Dandridge, Tennessee, to upgrade the LED lighting. But it is a large plan. So this is one big element of the plan, but this is a huge piece of it. But there will be more to come to help support DCS.
Representative Barrett?
Well, thank you for saying there's going to be more to come. That's kind of where I was getting with the question. Is it seems like we have a much bigger problem than just these 2 projects will address. Certainly in a long-term standpoint, maybe a short-term solution, but I was hoping that we would have a more global, long-term idea of what was going to be needed in the future. And so you've addressed that, and I appreciate it.
Yes, certainly.
The other question with regard to these projects, since we're doing renovations on existing facilities, is there a plan in place, or has there been some discussion on how we're going to do those renovations without affecting the children that are housed there? You know, how are we going to do that while we're still in operation?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And for example, at Wilder, we have a new hardware secure facility we are building. We're going to be locating it next on the same property, but next door to the existing Wilder facility. So not until this particular facility, the brand new one, is completely open and operational, will kids move from that facility to this one. And when that happens, we'll go ahead and take down the old facility at Wilder and put in a new staff secure facility there for new patients and new folks that come in. 48 beds will be the size of that staff secure. But yeah, we're not going to be moving anybody around or taking anything down until we're certain we have a new place that's ready to receive them.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And Commissioner, could you just clarify for those who might be watching the difference between the staff secure and the hardware secure?
Certainly.
facilities?
Hardware secure, the building is secure, completely secure. Staff secure, the building is secure, but you have staff there who are also watching and taking care of the kids that are there. It is a lower level of security, staff secure is.
Thank you. Representative Sparks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to compliment you on the right sizing of Nashville. Representative Freeman and I were talking about efficiencies, property and space. I think he's even impressed with it. But when you look at the ever-changing work habits of state employees, how efficient has that been for your department as far as cost savings?
It's been great for our department. And of course, we meet with all the other departments and agencies across state government to get a perspective from them as well. Commissioners are different. Some of them like certain people in the office. We really look at the role and determine, does that role need to be in the office on a regular basis, or is there an option to provide them an alternative workplace? And so we meet with our departments. We work with DOHR. We also work with the CFG office, who helps establish some of the AWS guidelines. And so through the three of us, we work together to make sure that we understand what the department is doing, how it's functioning, and what roles can work in an AWS environment. I mean, typically it's more of the administrative and what commonly referred to in the private sector as back of house kinds of roles, more financial roles, administrative roles. Those are the ones who can typically work in an AWS environment for greater than 1 or 2 days a week.
Yes, ma'am. And also another question, is JLL saving us money? Have you found efficiencies there as well the past few years?
Absolutely. Absolutely. JLL does save us money. They also do a terrific job for us, frankly. JLL saves us money because they self-perform so much of the work. They also continually train their staff properly, get them certified with whatever licenses they need. We weren't always doing that to the best of our abilities at the state when all of that was in-house. But JLL, you make one phone call and things do get handled. I can't really speak highly enough of them. They've done a terrific job for us. And again, as I said, they self-perform. They do not pick up the phone call to ask somebody else from a different company to show up. They do a lot of self-performance, which saves us significant dollars.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Chairman Baum.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Branscombe and your team for your hard work. I've got a question about capital projects. We've experienced a lot of inflation the last several years. Have your capital projects experienced unexpected expenditures and needed more funding for completion?
That is a big question. We have lots of nice slides on that. We didn't bring those today, but I'm glad you did ask the question because inflation has been an issue. I think for us, probably starting in 2019, we really started to see inflation hit the construction market dramatically in the way of materials and labor. So we did a reset. And so, we did have a couple of projects. I know when I came into this position in 2019, the first thing I had to do was come back and ask for more money for Fall Creek Falls and Paris Landing. Not the best situation to walk into. But we have gone back and really looked at how we're estimating our projects. We're estimating all the way to the midpoint of construction to make sure the project's completely bought out so that we know what's happening. We do a deep dive on inflation and how inflation's affecting the market. And we also know that sometimes, working for the state can be, I know it's hard to believe, a little more cumbersome perhaps than working for a private contractor. So we make sure we include that in our estimates as well. Last year, the Senate, we had a meeting with the Senate. We went through this entire topic and we showed all the numbers to them, what we have requested and what we've given back at the end of each project. Since 2016, John, 17? The net request for projects that we have asked for, the net dollars, $3 million. And we'll redo that and do that presentation for the Senate again on March 12th, I believe. And if you'd like to see that big presentation, you'll be able to see that in that hearing where we will get into the real details of capital and how we have been managing it. But no doubt, the inflation rate, we've adjusted it dramatically every year for what's occurring in Middle Tennessee.
Okay, that's good to know. And just one follow-up question. On those projects that do have unspent funds, where did the funds go to?
Depends on the project. Sometimes the funds go back to a trust fund. There's a mental health trust fund, DIDD trust fund, for example, when properties sold and when those properties that are held within those jurisdictions are sold, it goes back into taking care of the clients in one way or another. If it's a facility revolving fund property, those proceeds go back into the facility revolving fund. That goes into general fund. Where else would it go?
I'd say you're exactly right. It kind of depends on the original funding source as to where it goes. In general, I'd say the most common explanation is that those funds remain in capital project residuals for the specific fund or purpose, so that they can be repurposed for other projects as approved and appropriated.
Okay, thank you all.
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, thank all of you for being here. And I don't know who want to take this. I have a two-part question. In the FY 23-24 budget, $2.5 million recurring funds were included for the mega site water treatment. Now, you may have answered the first part of this. What are these recurring funds used for? And then I have a second part of that question, please.
So the first, the 2.5 million is for operations of the water and wastewater system. I know I sit on the Mega Site Authority of West Tennessee Board. As I said, Clay is the CEO, and we need that funding to operate the system.
Okay, thank you. Second part of that is the plan still to contract out the daily operation of the Mega Site water treatment facility?
Most definitely. We're actually in an RFP process right now. And so we have several who have expressed their interest. We had an RFI. Clay's been working his little heart out with others on this team here, Michael and others, to answer all the questions from those who are plan to propose as an operator. And so we're in that process. We're right on schedule, and we will have an operator online. What's the projected date, Clay, for the operator to be online? July of this year.
Madam Chair, one last question.
Certainly.
I know that both of you serve. I need to give a quick shout out to Clay because I know he's worked real hard in that area and getting things together. Has there been any major changes in the Mega Site Authority Board compared to when we first started that either of you, Clay or you, would like to share with us? I'm not suggesting it has been. I'm just asking you, has it been?
So for us in the way of infrastructure, we have not had any changes since it started. We did increase the pipe to an 18-inch pipe. We thought we would have a smaller one, but once we got more information from Ford, we did install a larger pipe. But our infrastructure numbers have stayed the same. We've not, we're right on schedule. Knock on wood, on budget, knock on wood. But that's all stayed the same. We've had no major changes. Clay, I don't know that you've had any major changes either.
So Clay Bright, Mega Site Board. So Representative Shaw, I think were you asking about changes in the actual board component itself? There have been no changes. Those terms are 4 years. So I'm going on the third year right now. So it's a 4-year term. And those appointees are by the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker of the House. So at the end of 4 years, that will be renewed. So I'm not sure what that makeup will look like, but I will say we've got a great board.
Representative Gant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And if you could allow me to approach this with several questions. And I want to continue the conversation around the Mega Site. And first, Commissioner, thank you for being here. Thank you for your time. And I know y'all have very important work to be doing during the day. And thanks for spending your time here with us this morning. One of the questions, let me just kind of start out. The proposed budget includes $107,000 for salary increases for the Mega Site Authority Board. The budget indicates this source as under other funding is from fees charged by the Mega Site. Are these fees currently assessed by the Mega Site?
I'll take that question. Michael Winston, Director of Financial Management. Those fees will be user fees collected from Ford and the other tenants on the site who are using the water and wastewater treatment plant. And I know that CEO Bright is currently working on what those rates will be charged to the users of the water and wastewater treatment plant.
And how much has been accumulated?
Right now, I think we're just beginning the process to start billing. So those have not occurred yet. The request in the FY25 budget would begin, in July 1. So I think unless Clay wants to add anything, that we would expect that by this summer that we would start, if not a little bit before, we'd start collecting those user fees.
Are these used for potentially salary increases for existing employees or board members?
So we're transitioning from the administrative and setup functions of the Mega Site Authority into an operational phase. So to date, the board, the salaries have been state-funded dollars because the water and wastewater treatment plant was under construction. Once that's finished and it becomes operational, then the Mega Site Authority will transition to being fully funded or funded by those user fees and those collection fees. So this is just kind of the beginning of recognizing the new revenue source of collecting those fees to fund operations going forward.
So is it for employees or board members?
So the specific request in FY25 is for employees. It's very similar to what Commissioner discussed earlier for the Multi-Agency Law Enforcement Training Academy. The issue is we requested those positions prior to the new state's compensation plan that Department of Human Resources rolled out in late 2022. So the positions were originally funded under the old salary plan and the old salary grades. And so this is a corrective item to recognize that those positions are in their new grades and they have new salary ranges. And so we're adjusting the funding to match those new salary ranges.
Okay, just so I understand. So do the employees of the mega site not receive salary increases under just the state?
They do. They would be eligible for increases, yes.
Okay. And Madam Chair, if I can go back to the point that Chairman Williams was making about the water and sewer system there. I know that when we were working on, many of us in the West Tennessee legislature representing West Tennessee had major concerns about that before the announcement of Ford coming here. And I know that Mayor Huffman in Tipton County, as well as Fayette County and Haywood County, and even into Shelby County, there was a Plan B that was out there that would have transformed this into a regional sewer and water system that would have complemented this overall project to deal with the infrastructure issues and major problems, frankly, that we're dealing with now in West Tennessee. And these mayors and the county governments are now under a major duress of dealing with infrastructure because of this project. And again, the project is great. We're glad it's in West Tennessee. But at the same time, we have a major concern here with this water and treatment regional sewer system, which now is going to cost in the millions of dollars to address for West Tennessee. And then on top of that, you have the depreciation issue that these municipalities can't afford to pay, when dealing with some of these projects. So I think this is something that we've got to be very cognizant of and look at as we go forward here. And now we're kind of like under the 8 ball with dealing with this, when this could have been dealt with in a different fashion that would have saved taxpayers across this state millions of dollars if we had looked at this a little bit differently from the very beginning. And you may want to expand on this or expound on this or not, but I don't know what ideas that the administration has got to deal with this, but I know that Representative Moody and Senator Rose and all of the delegation over in West Tennessee, we're plagued with these questions from our mayors, and it's a very serious problem. And I frankly don't have an answer of how we're going to deal with that.
Well, if I may, I think the approach of the administration was to provide additional funding through ECD. I don't know if you had this discussion with Commissioner McWhorter before I got here, but they have grants that they have funded. There is also, of course, a consultant who has been advising those different communities on how best to get there and to get what they need to make a different system work and to be able to support the growth that's happening there. And again, I'm not sure if you spoke about it with Commissioner McWhorter, but I do think the administration is continuing to look at how to invest additional funding to help support the issue.
Madam Chair, I have one last question, I promise. And thank you for your patience and let me do this. Commissioner, this may be for you or maybe for Mr. Bright, is the pilot payments that we see and that was set up in this overall project, where are we at in the amount that is being reinvested back into the community from Ford to be, the purpose was to invest in infrastructure? And I know that it starts out very lightly. I think the first or second year, it puts back $1 million per year to the communities for infrastructure. So where are we at in that? And explain the sliding scale, so to speak, because it goes from like 1 million the first year or second year to 3 million, and then it kind of increases as we go along. And on the front end, it's very light when we need it the most for infrastructures dealing with what I just talked about. So explain that so where I can maybe understand that a little bit better.
It is a sliding scale that was part of the agreement with Ford. And CEO Bright can give you the details on that. I do know that the last time the Megasite Authority of West Tennessee met, we had some discussion around directing some of those fundings for additional infrastructure support. But Clay, I'll let you address those details.
Clay Bright, Megasite Authority. I mean, Representative Gowns, you got the scale, 1 million. I think by year 10, it gets to 11 million. So that pilot program is somewhat prorated between Fayette County and Haywood County, the majority of it going to Haywood County. And you're right, they need the money now sooner rather than later. Over 30 years, it'll be $296 million. Also, the suppliers that are coming in, there will be some pilot payments coming from those suppliers that we're negotiating right now. But I will tell you this, knowing that with the IDB in Fayette County and Haywood County, knowing that the money is coming and long-term that money is coming, that does enable them to have financing mechanisms so they can start to put this money to use sooner rather than later versus just waiting on that money. So, I mean, that was the deal that was set up with Ford and ECD. So that's the deal that we have. And we've tried to, as soon as we had the money in place, try and get those agreements, again, with the IDB boards, both in Fayette and Haywood County, so they could guarantee that money's coming and they could go out and finance those monies for them and
Okay.
make that planning.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay.
much. Thank you,
Sir.
Chairman.
Chairman Zachary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioner and team. A quick question also related to the mega site. Can you provide us, in 2021, the special session, we allocated $5 million non-recurring to provide consulting services for local government legal services to the mega site. Can you give us a breakdown of the allocation of those funds?
Yes, sir. That is what I was mentioning to Representative Gant just a moment ago. That was additional support from the administration for a consultant to help provide expertise to the communities, the counties, the cities who have services out there on what they could do to help expand their services that they provide to support the growth. Clay, anything else you want to add to that? Okay. But as far as the breakdown, I'm sorry, I can't answer that, but ECD most definitely could.
Okay. And then one more question, Madam Chair, if I may. So that leaves my second question. And the governor's proposed budget. Susan. In the governor's proposed budget, there is also $5 million for Blue Oval regional planning and support. What is that $5 million additional going to be allocated for?
I would guess for that, do you know, I'm assuming it's for additional support in the same way, but Clay?
So the first $5 million that was allocated that's been spent so far was an in-depth analysis with all the counties. I think it's 21 counties that are west of the Tennessee River to understand exactly what planning is in place and what the needs are going forward. So, I mean, and that money's been spent basically over the past 2 years, and by this summer, it'll run out. So this additional $5 million that's coming on, well, and we always knew when the statute got in place and approved by the General Assembly, we knew there would have to be more money put into place to help these communities planning. I think ECD can give you more information, but I think what they're trying to do now is narrow the focus within 4 to 6 counties that are directly around Blue Oval City to get more in depth to help these cities plan as Representative Gant has asked and Representative Williams about the planning as far as infrastructure, water and wastewater. None of us had a crystal ball early on what needed to take place to support these communities and what they needed. But this second round of the 5 million is going to help these communities understand what they need for roadways, what they need for water and wastewater infrastructure, and to continue moving forward and helping them.
So
in that
is,
effort.
so is the $5 million going to a consultant or consulting firm, or is it going to the local communities?
Yes, sir. It goes, it's, the money is spent from ECD into the consultant, and the consultant works directly with the communities to help advise them on specific projects that they're working on. But the money does not go direct to the county to spend or the local city to spend.
And is it the same consultant from 21 that it is today? That it would
I
be?
don't know if they'll go through another procurement, but as far as I know right now, it will be the same consultant, and it's a group of consultants.
Okay. It's a very profitable consulting agreement. Thank you.
So let me make sure I understand these monies are to pay for consulting fees. They're not going directly to the local entities, but what they are doing is allowing the local entities to have the, I guess, the benefit of, if they're good consultants, to have the benefit of their knowledge without having to pay for those services. So it's an indirect support to the local government, but it is not doing anything. If the consultant says you local government, you need to invest, $10 million in a water treatment facility or whatever, there's no dollars for that in this allocation. This is strictly to determine what the needs are.
They're working hand in hand with these communities. And we had a planning meeting a couple of Thursdays ago in the town of Stanton, and the consultant was there, along with people from the town of Stanton were there, as well as the mayor and representatives there. So they're all around the table trying to figure out the next best steps, what they need to grow and to advise them. So they're all working together, but it's kind of like an a la carte slate of services, consulting services on what that local community needs. Does that answer your question?
Not really.
Okay.
So the $5 million, is that a spend down depending on what services the consultant provides? How is that contract set up with the consultant? Are we giving them $5 million and then they're providing services, or are they providing a service and they're drawing down $100,000 for this service or $50,000 for another? How does that
ECD
work?
probably needs to answer that question.
I'm sorry.
ECD probably needs to answer that contractual answer.
Okay. Chairman Zachary.
Thank you. Do you have the name of the consultant?
Gresham Smith and Partners is the main consultant.
Where are they located?
Here
in Tennessee.
And they also have an office in Memphis.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman Whitson.
Thank you, Chair Lady, and I'll be quick. I just want Commissioner Branscombe, thank you. I appreciate your leadership in obviously a department with a lot of scale and scope of responsibility. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
And just want to share with the committee, my dad was Commissioner of General Services for 8 years under Ned Ray McWhorter, and he had an opportunity to have dinner with or lunch one day with Commissioner Branscombe, and he appreciated that so much, and he felt the department was in good hands after meeting you. And thank you for that.
Thank
And
you.
also, I want to thank your team for helping on the War Memorial rebuild or renovation and taking care of the Veterans Organization and the Tennessee Historical Society. I think where you put them will really help the visitors' experience and the people of Tennessee and their staff, and that's appreciated. Just one request, if you could give Leader Lambert and I, remember your staff, an update on the construction project for the Carter House Visitor Center. We're both interested in history, and I know that project's been kind of working. We had to get some more funds for that to make sure we complete it, but any update on that would be greatly appreciated.
John, do you have an update now, or we need to get back with you?
I probably need to.
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
yes, sir, I
thank
need
you.
to get back to you.
If you will, again, as always, when questions like this are asked, if you'll just provide that to my office, then we will share it with the committee as a whole. Leader Camper, I believe you had a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. Sorry I had to leave. I had to go speak to a group. I want to take a moment to thank you for always responding to my requests anytime I want to update on what's going on any issue. You've been very open, honest, and provided great information. I really appreciated your whole team. I appreciate the monthly meetings that Brooksy does to update us on what's going on in Blue Oval City with everybody at the table. People can ask their questions. I think they've been pretty open and pretty good about that. I appreciate that. I also appreciate when I asked about minority participation, you provided me the information. You showed where, minorities were participating in the project. That's of all categories, whether they were disabled, veterans, whatever, women. You've been pretty good about that, and I really appreciate it. Mr. Bright, I appreciate you again with the board. Your responses have been right on point every time I ask a question or a constituent asks a question. I've been to meetings up there myself. I think you guys are doing the best you can under the circumstances and the hand that you've been dealt. Also, Madam Chair, I do feel like with this project, there's a lot of unknowns. And so people are trying to figure it out. And I've felt pretty good about the consultant being there with the expertise that they need to help guide and direct, what's going to be, because this project is going to transform the entire region. And it's a lot of talk about, the county mayors and the county organizations and everybody coming together with a regional mindset, because each one have their own vision of what they want. And so it's helpful to have a consultant that can help guide through that and come up with a strategic plan of what it's going to look like. And it appears to me that everybody has had a seat at the table. And I think that's great. So I just appreciate what's been going on with that. I look forward to all the great things that's going to happen in West Tennessee. I firmly believe this project is going to transform the entire region. And so we have to think about, the best ways for us to accomplish that. Something that I don't hear a lot about is transportation and how we're going to move people from, Obion, Lake County. How are they going to get there? They deserve to work there too, from the furthest most point in Shelby County. They need the opportunity too. So I'd like to hear more about that, and how we're going to move people throughout the entire region to that mega site. So we could talk about that later, but I just want to thank you for all the responses you've been given to me, and every time I call, it's never been a hesitation at all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you.
That does conclude our questions for today. We've gone a little bit over time. Thank you for, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Members of the committee, would you please help me welcome the Eastern Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors? They're here today for their Day on the Hill. And I told them General Services were here, and General Services is sort of our real estate management for the state of Tennessee. So they were excited to hear that. But thank you.
Welcome
Can I add something? I'm actually a member of the East Tennessee Realtors Association. Happy they're here as well.
Your
Well,
group is
welcome
here.
to our realtors. I know they played a critical role across the state. We work. I think every member works with their local groups very closely. And I'm sorry, I know there was an event last night. There was an elevator issue, so a lot of us weren't able to meet and greet because we weren't up to walking 30 flights up. But I hope that there was still a good crowd with the elevator when they did finally get it working. Again, thank you, Commissioner, and your team for being here today, for being willing to take the time out of your busy schedule to answer our questions. It does complete our calendar for today. We will continue our budget hearings Monday at 9. So Monday morning at 9, and there is a change. We will be in House Hearing Room 3 rather than this room. So we will be a little tight on Monday for our budget hearings. That's the only day that we will not be in here, but see you then. Thank you all. We are adjourned.